Hello, Star Wars fans. Hey, there's 344 days until Christmas 2021. And today we're going to get into the Mortis Arc. We've got our regular Thursday afternoons with Imagic Maker from Reimagining Star Wars here with us today. And Imagic Maker brought this up Monday when we were kind of talking about different timelines. We were talking about, and then it came up again yesterday as we were talking. Oh, well, yesterday was timelines. Monday was talking about are there already two? No, what was I forget? No, oh my goodness.
Yesterday was timelines.
Yeah, yesterday was timelines, and I got to go back and look and see what Monday was. But anyhow, we were talking about that, and we decided we were going to go ahead and dive deep into the Mortis timeline, or into the Mortis Arc, and cover that. So yes, today, XR Coon first in the chat. Thanks for being here, and of course Wu-Tang Wells, Russell tweaked the intro. If you guys have caught the countdown at the beginning in the intro, huge thanks to Russell for making that for me. We tweaked it again yesterday, and today was the first time getting to see that again. So thank you so much. Trinity, thanks for being here, and appreciate the retweet out on Twitter, in the Twitter sphere, getting that out to everybody. And Gray, I suppose you have your power back. Hopefully they got that all resolved for you early yesterday, and you didn't have to deal with that too much longer. And Dale, good to have you here. Passport, hello. Oh, it's time. Polyhedral Paradise. Oh, I tell you what, Jason did a great job. He had a 24-hour fundraiser for mental health in gaming, and it gave me the opportunity to participate in that and help with the fundraising. Fantastic job there, and huge shout out to that. Was great work, and I know Russell was involved with that as well. So we've got some just wonderful, wonderful people in this community, and I really appreciate the support. Bruce Almighty, hello there. Welcome. So we're gonna jump into this Mortis Arc, and there's just a couple of things to kind of yeah. We reached $1,000. Jason, Polyhedral Paradise, they were able to raise $1,000 for that mental health and gaming. Just tremendous work. Tremendous. That was great. So anybody that's not familiar with the Mortis Arc, where have you been? Oh my goodness, you should already know. It comes all the way back from season 3 of the Clone Wars animated series. Episodes 15, 16, 17. Starts in 15 with Overlords, 16 Altar of Mortis, and 17 Ghosts of Mortis. And we're going to talk about that a bit today. So if you haven't been into it, I strongly encourage you to go out and catch those episodes because they're being referenced more and more, especially as it is with Ahsoka. That's what we were talking about Monday. We were talking about the Ahsoka series with Trev. How could I forget? So we were talking about the Ahsoka series, and in there, that Morai is the owl is seen throughout, associated with Ahsoka, and it comes from this Mortis Arc. So you're familiar with that. If you're not, and I believe it's going to carry on quite a bit more as we get into the Ahsoka series. That makes this discussion today that much more important. So it's a great way to kind of wrap up our content. So with that, Imagic Maker, go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll get started.
Well, I mean, I think by now everybody kind of knows me. It's kind of an every Thursday thing. I think they'd be more surprised if I didn't show up, but then when I do.
Would be. It would be terrible. And let me just go ahead and announce that Imagic Maker and I were talking yesterday. We're going to start doing a toy review. So I've already been doing like toy unboxings on the channel and my first impressions. But once you have the toy for a little bit of time, you find out if there are little quirks with it and if there are issues with it. And so we're going to start doing some toy reviews And for example, I was bringing up my good friend here, Moff Gideon. We've got Moff Gideon here in the vintage collection line, and he is a fantastic figure. But this cape is heavy, and he keeps falling down. Oh, it's hard to get him to stand up, and so he keeps falling down. And yesterday, when I came into the office, he was laying down, and he had thrown that Darksaber down again. So every time he falls down, he tends to throw the Darksaber on the ground. So just anybody can pick it up. Like Din Djarin when he's not supposed to. So there you go. So
they made it true to life. So it's just like the show. He just fell and threw it down.
He just fell and threw it down. That's what he does. That's how he works. And the toy accurately depicts how Moff Gideon handles the Darksaber when he falls down.
That's right.
And he falls down all the time. So we're going to start doing some toy reviews, and we're going to have Vega and perhaps your son as well join us in those.
Yeah, probably just little bits at the end where he's like doing his own little thing, like makes them whack each other and throw the Darksaber.
and throw the Darksaber. That's right. and I have a major unboxing tomorrow and a reveal, so we'll put that on the stream. And try museum wax. You can get it on Amazon. Oh, I think they have vintage collection stands, and I just need to order myself a box of the vintage collection stands. The bottom of the feet on the vintage collection figures, and this you're not going to be able to see it. But on these vintage collection figures, they've got little indentations to mount them on a stand so that the guy can quit falling down. WandaVision review embargo's up. Everyone's making videos on it. Well, this is Star Wars over here, XR-Kun. Don't know if you mentioned that. And WandaVision's not. So there. I know it's still in the nerdy space, but we're excited about talking about the Mortis Arc today. And I sent some slides to Imagic Maker yesterday, and the content we'll discuss here is some outline from the Mortis Arc. Any overview you'd like to give the Mortis Arc before we jump in?
Yeah, I'd like to give some context a little bit to what I want to talk. I hated the Mortis Arc at first, and I really had to deep dive it in order to come to reconcile some of the things inside of it, because to me it seems very contradictory on the surface from what Lucas has said in the past and what other pieces of Star Wars show, and so I was like, yeah, I don't like this arc, and if you remember when we reviewed it in when we were doing the run up to season 7, I was like, I'm kind of mad by it. It made me angry. So no, I had to deep dive and kind of figure out what I really thought it meant, and I think I got a better picture that it takes you off the surface of what you think it actually means. So I think we're about to talk about something that I don't think we've really ever had a discussion about before.
No, we haven't, other than our initial review of it. And it's a great arc. And I had a prolonged discussion a little bit on the chats to yesterday's stream that came in after the fact. I got some comments and some back and forth, and there's some thought of, did the Mortis Arc create a timeline variance so that we have now at least 3? And my take is no, because from the beginning of the arc to the end happens in real time, like within seconds, instantaneous, right?
Right.
And so whatever would have happened had Ahsoka died or had Anakin decided to stay, whatever the outcomes of those decisions were happened immediately. So it's not like you have one that went forward one way and then it got changed. and that's just starts to get into a multiverse theory, like DC Comics used to have, where every time, like every moment in time, is another split off to another world. So you had infinite worlds, and that's where you had Crisis and Infinite Crisis and those kind of events. As DC tried to reduce that back down and purge that concept, but that's where that kind of emits from. And if you are saying every decision made in the primary timeline creates alternate timelines, then that's a whole different concept. I mean, and every universe, including the one we live in, would have that, right?
I would agree.
So I don't think that the Mortis timeline or the Mortis Arc created another timeline. That's the bottom of it, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think so either. I think it's intended to show us something. It delves in a little bit of Star Wars mythology, and I don't think it's really to I don't think the intent is to alter anything, really.
Right.
Because I think ultimately it doesn't alter anything.
It sort of does, because I mean, the more I follows Ahsoka afterwards, right? That's a permanent change. But it almost comes across as it only happened in imagination, but it didn't.
Right.
I mean, it actually did happen. So let's get in. There are three figures. The first one is the father, and I'll let you start this, Imagic Maker. These are your bullet points. So
All right.
Give us a brief overview of the father.
All right. So I mean, the father is kind of a and all in all, this is kind of an allegory for the situation in the galaxy itself. So what you see in here is the father, which is effectively the will of the Force, represents the will of the Force, the old ways of how things have happened. He represents an emotional balance. So if you really think of the allegory, what people like to say is the allegory is that it's really the Force, the light side, the dark side, and I would actually differ with that. And he really, the allegory of the three is really the emotional balance in ourselves. We all have, selfish desires, and we all have selfless desires, and those things accompany certain things. But if we embrace them fully to their absurd degree, it can lead to places that would be out of balance. And so the idea is that you have to have an emotional balance, which is what the father represents. It's harmony. It's a harmony in the universe. And so we'll go further into that, but that's effectively what the father represents. But there is an aging process that has occurred, that the ways of handling and maintaining this harmony have aged as things have changed, and now there needs to be a renewal of that of those ways, of that will, of that thought, in order to maintain the balance. And that's why he seeks out Anakin to be that new change.
I should maybe bring up too that there's a bit of a parallel between the father, the son, and the daughter, between that and Tython and Ashla and Bogan.
Right.
Where one represents light, one represents dark, and one is the balance of the two. And so a lot of people see the father as the balance of the two. But I think you might push back on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he really is just the Force. If he's going to represent anything, it's just the Force. If we're going to say that it's what it is, but I think the idea is that it's harmony within life, within the Force, within everything. There is both. There's death in the world, and there's life in the world, and all of those are the Force. The death is not the dark side. It's just that if you embrace death more, that it leads to the dark side. That selfishness in itself is, can be, but there's times to be selfish when it means if I don't eat, I die. I mean, these things that they are what we would consider selfish are things like ambition, our pursuit of to be free. I mean, those can be considered selfish ambitions and selfish thoughts, and so the idea is not that you have them; it's that you embrace them in forsaking everything else. So, and that's really the aspect of what it means to embrace the dark side. It's an unnatural position. It's something that puts you out of harmony with life, with the force, with the universe.
Excellent. So deep.
Yeah, I think this is actually a really deep arc. I think it's much deeper than what the surface of it says it is.
Well, and that's the value, and like Gray mentioned earlier, this arc is something that you can watch over and over again because it is so dark, so deep that it has multiple meaning. It's layered meanings.
Right.
At the very surface level, sure, you can see him as balance, and the daughter is light, and the son is dark, but as you start to dig into the actual content, you start to unwrap layers and see it from a different perspective. And it really is something that has latched on to Star Wars, and is something that especially with the Ahsoka series coming, I don't see going anywhere. And with Anakin's role following it, and we'll get there in a moment. But with Anakin's story arc progression, I don't think you can ignore this arc either. So I think it's really, really good. Yeah.
No, I definitely think you can't ignore it, and there's definitely truth to that. You know, one of the things I thought was really interesting. It's actually the I think probably one of the, at least the best lines in the first part of it, and that's where the son is talking to Ahsoka, and he says there's wildness in you, child. The seeds of darkness have been planted by your master. Do you feel it? And she responds, no. He is like no other Jedi, passionate, impulsive, but I trust him with my life. And so, you know, and we see that as he brings out the seeds of bitterness and resentment in her to make her face that, which makes her in turn face the things that she's suppressing with Anakin. So Anakin has not recognized her abilities, and she resents it. And so when you see her fighting him, he's like, you know, what are you doing? You know, Snips, you know, she's like, don't call me that. You know, she's bitter. I mean, we'll go into that here in a little bit. But I mean, I just want to point out some things. So, I mean, as we go through, but she's not turned to the dark side. It's bringing out an emotional aspect that leads to the dark side when you embrace those things. Yeah.
It's that's what I mean. There's so multi-layered. And as Dale said, there's anytime you see a trinity, it's easy to link it to other trinities, right? So you see father, son, daughter, Anakin, Luke, Leia. I'm sure you can make parallels there, even if they're not primary, right? There are parallels there. And the same holds true, and I brought it up because it's even closer if you talk about Tython and Ashla and the Bogan.
Right.
That parallel is very, very close. And we don't know yet that that's the context of Tython in The Mandalorian. They haven't shown us the moons. You don't see the moons of Tython as they're approaching, but it doesn't mean they weren't there.
Right.
But yeah, it's the same idea, but maybe executed differently.
Right.
And here you see this trinity as well. You see the father, the son, and the daughter. The father is he's definitely the stronger of the three, because he keeps both the son and the daughter in check, but he's aging, and he's looking for Anakin to step into his role.
Right.
So Ahsoka goes by Ashley in the Ahsoka novel. Oh yeah, so that gets back into, I think, what we were talking about yesterday with Wandering Dog, that in the two timeline theory, that Ahsoka actually became uh, uh, the daughter,
Right. And the
and that,
Ashla.
yeah, the Ashla, right? So that's very true. So let's before we get too much further, get into the sun and what he represents. So go ahead.
All right. So yeah, as we see the sun come up here, so this is where I say we divide them from. Like I said, on the surface they appear this dark side versus light side, but it's really not that way. It's really the base human emotions. So these things lead to the dark side, more likely lead to the dark side, but they're not the dark side themselves. So again, I outline things like ambition, the desire to be free, freedom, and control. And I mean, why do we seek these things? Ambition is because we feel we are better at doing something than somebody else. Why do we seek freedom? Well, we seek freedom so that people can't place responsibilities on us that we don't want. But then, and then why do we want control? Because if we can control something, people can't hurt us. Those aren't bad things, but when we drive toward them, they can lead to the dark side, and they're more likely to lead to the dark side than the things, that are on the other side, that the daughter represents. And so what we see is that when we first see him, people like to ascribe him being already of the dark side, but he's not. He doesn't fall to the dark side until the altar of Mortis. And this is when the father says he has embraced the dark side. And so that's not until then. So and the son even challenges it with Anakin when he says, "I won't follow the dark side willingly," and into which he says, "The dark side, the light side." Says it's so much more complicated than that. You're making it, Now I think the son is also kind of lying in the course of that piece, but he's saying is that he's trying to make it to where it's not that simple, and saying that really these that these emotions that you think you control, that you think lead to this, are just normal emotions. I think it's what he's laying out, and even later, in a different part, where Obi-Wan addresses Anakin, which is outside of this arc, he says it's normal for you to have these emotions. It's what you do with them. It's what a Jedi does with these emotions that lead to their fate.
That's a really good point, because where Star Wars has been headed lately is the Force is not light, the Force is not dark. There is no light side power, dark side power. It's how you use those powers that determine if it's light or dark. One example being the Force choke, right? We see Luke use it headed into Jabba's palace, and you wouldn't say that he was a Sith at that point by any means. You also see Vader use it right off the bat in A New Hope, and he is a Sith at that point. So the Force choke in and of itself is not necessarily a light side power nor a dark side power. It's how you use it, and your intent. And Dale brought up a thing here, like with the dark side power, and Gray brought it up. It's they ultimately want power and control. And he said that they influence the flow of the Force, bending it to their will. Right, and we can make things the way we want them to be. So there was a really good video, I want to bring it up, that Star Wars Meg did about Force Heal. And she did, I think, yesterday, and specifically talking about Grogu and the Force Heal. We saw the Force Heal used a couple of times, maybe a third in live action. When you look at A New Hope, when Obi-Wan bends over Luke, some people say that was Force Heal. Some people say it's not. But the two obvious ones come from Grogu. He definitely used it when what's his name? was injured and he healed it.
Grief Karga.
Yeah, Grief Karga. Thanks. Yeah, Grief Karga was injured and he healed him. He also used it with Din a little bit, but then of course Rey used it quite a lot. And then at the end, so did Ben. Right. So
maybe he used Force Resurrect.
Well, yeah, which is heal. It's an extension of it. But in all of those cases, and the question always comes up: why wasn't it taught to the Jedi? Well, because you are bending the Force to your will. You're determining who lives and who dies. You're determining the outcome of their health. Right? Yeah, Grief Karga. So. It would have been highly discouraged in the Jedi teaching to use Force heal because you're bending the Force to alter things to your will. And to some degree, I guess, always using the Force, and that comes back to the Bendu, right? Using the Force at all is bending it, but Force heal seems to be determining the life of one person over another. Uh-oh, Gray says we're buffering.
Uh-oh.
If anybody else is having buffering issues, let me know. We'll find out if it's our connection or if it might be Gray. Let us know.
Yeah, Dale's like, I can save the ones I love. Screw everyone else.
Yeah, we're going to get back to this, Dale, because it really does come in. And Dale says, it's just you, Gray. It's Gray. The elves. Mark, good to have you here. We're going to talk more about Anakin here in a moment, and I've got a thought that I want to bring up as we get to that. So the son definitely is based in, and this first bullet point bears repeating. Right, he is based out of ambition, freedom, and control. His emotions guide him in wanting to put himself ahead at the expense of others if need be. Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the daughter.
All right. I'm not done with before we finish. We go to the daughter. Let's finish up here. So a couple of things happen is that while he is more, can we go back?
Yep. Just a second. Go ahead.
So while he may be more angled toward that, he's not dark side. He's not embraced the dark side, fully until the second one in the arc. So until Altars or Mortis. So though he's more predisposed to move that direction, he's not dark side until the second one of the arc. So until Altar or Mortis. So the second episode of the arc, and so that's kind of important to know. So, but once he is corrupted, the father considers him dead. He's metaphorically dead to the Force, so he must be eliminated. There's not another choice at that point, and so there's not redemption for that. If there's it must be eliminated. That's why they seek to use the blade of Mortis. It's not until he embraces it that they seek that they use the dagger. And so he must physically die to bring balance, because corrupt and then further on he embraces that further, because corrupt ambition is imbalanced without compassion. You can't have ambition without it being tempered by compassion, because if you don't have that, then it's fully imbalanced. And so
yeah, and we'll get more into his transition into the dark side, I think, in the last slide, because there's some important information that happens in that scene that and I'm not giving away everything right now, but but definitely, and that's why I went back. He's not. It's easy to say he's the physical embodiment of the dark side. His appearance, his emotions, his ambition, all of that are an embodiment of that for sure. But from a technical perspective, he does not actually flip to be the dark side until, as you mentioned, at that altar. Right. But it's a clear distinction from the get-go.
No, absolutely. But the point of that is that meaning that just because you have those emotions, because they exist within us, and sometimes because they arise to the fore, does not make us dark side. It is, it's that is not having those emotions and having them within you and having them rise up at times is not being Sith or a dark Jedi, is not embracing the dark side. But there's a point at which they overtake, they come to the fore, they are all that that they consume you. It's in that consumption.
It's when you act upon it, right? To have those ambitions, things doesn't make you necessarily dark side, and we'll talk about that with Ahsoka, right? I mean, to have those thoughts and to have those emotions and have those feelings is one thing. To act upon them and how you act upon them, what you do with them, is what determines where you, if you actually do a turn to the dark side.
Right. So I would say that even in acting upon them, that doesn't make you, dark per se. Because I'll say the initial piece of this for overlords, the intro to that is balance is found in the one who faces his guilt. So it's not that you have done; it's that you have faced your feelings, you face these things, and resolve to not let them control you. But if you don't do that, if you seek to bury them, if you seek to say, "I'm not guilty for having these feelings. I'm not, I want freedom, even if it means I have to forsake all my other responsibilities, all my other duties." You don't face that there's a consequence for the things that you're doing. You don't face your guilt, then there'll be no balance found, because it's guilt that it's when you recognize the other side, and that you see that that compassion balances that ambition, or duty balances that freedom, that when you go, I want to be free and I can have some, but I still have duties that hold me here. I want to be in control, but I recognize that I cannot enslave everyone. And it's in that guilt that you find balance, because you realize that sometimes you have to exercise control, but there are times that you must let others go on their way.
Well, that's I don't want to belabor it too much, because there's some other things that I want to bring up.
Okay, sorry.
So let's get to that in just a moment. So the daughter, just a brief overview of who the daughter is.
So again, she's the base human emotions of empathy, duty, and compassion, and so they balance, and she's in the balance of those emotions with the sun. So her desires are more likely to lead to the light side. Light side is already in harmony with everything and typical. I mean, who says, "Oh, we should have less mercy in this world"? And so, I mean, who would say that less people? We need less empathy. We need people to not care what other people think. Nobody says that. I mean, so there's already a sense that you're more likely to be in balance and in harmony with the world around you if your base human emotions lean to empathy, duty, and compassion. So, but what's really important is that, remember, she's important to balance the sun. She is the one that keeps him grounded. We all have this piece of us that keeps us grounded in the things that really matter, so that we can overcome these things. And that's what the daughter is to her. And I think it's really good in the allegory, if we look at what's going on in the universe of the time with the Sith versus the Jedi, and ultimately we know what happens to the Jedi. The old way of the Jedi goes, but it's carried on through Luke and other small survivors of the Jedi Order, and Yoda and Obi-Wan embrace a new way in the end of at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and that's really important, because that's what they go and train on, and that's what that inkling is representing as Ahsoka survives in through what is given to her life being spared by having that last little splinter of the daughter.
Yeah, we'll get there in just a second, but yeah, again, I want to bring up the Ashla and the Bogan again, because I think that as far as canon material goes, what we get here is most parallel to that Legends content, where those moons of Tython represented these two, the same two prospects. That if somebody was leaning too heavily into dark side behaviors and actions, then they would have them spend some time on the light side moon, meditating and studying. And then likewise, if they spent too much time acting upon light side energy, without the balance, they would throw them to the dark side moon to do some meditating. And that's the closest that we see here between the son and the daughter. It's not exactly parallel, but it's in that same sort of space.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I as far as force, power is concerned, I can't really think of where they ever say the light side in the original trilogy. I know they don't in the original trilogy, or light side even in the prequel trilogy. And I'm hard pressed to believe where they say light side even in this arc. Now they do say dark and light, so they imply there's a light side and a dark side, but they don't ever say the light side as far as I can tell.
Well,
and,
it's like
they do say dark side for sure.
It's like the old Star Trek quote, "Beam me up, Scotty." Right? That's never said.
Right.
but everybody says it. But
yeah. So yeah. My point of it is they do say dark side, but they never say light side. But I mean, there's definitely implications, though they say between dark and light. They just never specifically say the term light side. And there's a contention, and there's at least a big portion of the fandom that says that and it's one I happen to ascribe to, is that the light side is just the force. It's just the force, and the dark side is that which is unnatural. It is that which is a corruption of the force, and there is a possibility you can have both the light and dark emotions, but that's not the dark. Dark emotions are not the dark side. They just lead toward that dark side, and so that also in turn that because there's just the force, that when you embrace the dark side, you're embracing a corruption of it and the unnatural. And I think this aligns with, and I did a whole series on this actually, on what is kind of the tropes within science fiction and science fantasy, and where you have one that is, and where the idea that goes back to the Romantics, and inside the Romantics is that aspect of nature's magic, and that's what the force is. It's nature's magic, and so the mechanized, which the Empire represents, and those kind of things are the corruption of nature, which is the corruption of the force, which is why you see Darth Vader is more machine now than man, and it is all those references to that.
Yeah. Well. There's also the yin and the yang, that symbol of light with a dot of dark and dark with a dot of light.
Yeah,
right?
and that symbol is in here to some degree. It's not, it's not exactly that, but I mean there is that. But understand the yin and the yang, the light and dark is fire and water. It's not, in the sense of that. So and the water, which is the dark, is the feminine, and the light, which is fire, is the masculine, and they both have a dark side, if you want to look at it that way, because the archetype of the feminine that's dark is the devouring mother. It's the mother that doesn't allow her children to grow up. She consumes them in their youth. And then and on the other side is the tyrant father, which is the which burns everything that they seek to do on their own, and will never and never lets them act, independently. It controls them to the point of being able to do anything. The mother is not control; it's over mothering. It's that tendency to never let them grow up, because they always will keep them perpetually a child.
Okay,
So they consume their age.
We're going too far down the rabbit hole. We're gonna have to come out of the rabbit hole.
The point of that is that it's there, and that's the point of when you say the light and the dark. It's not that there is an equal balance. So this idea that there's harmony inside the yin and yang is not because you have light and dark. It's not that you have to have the dark side of the force to be in balance. That's again a understanding of what the yin and the yang is. That's the point of what I'm trying to make.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get there just a little bit more, I think. But the idea that the daughter represents the embodiment of the light side, again, we had this discussion about the sun. To some degree, that's true. Just at the surface level, when you look at them, it's very easy. The sun is the embodiment of the dark side. The daughter is the embodiment of the light side. It's easy to see that. And
I disagree with it. I think that's the surface view they want you to have, but it's really deceiving, actually.
Well, and I think the bulk of people who just watch it see that,
right?
And they're going to walk away and say, "Yep, I saw the daughter's the light side, the son's the dark side," and that's what we say. When you go back and watch this Mortis Arc repeatedly, it begins to get deeper, and your understanding grows deeper. So we have to deal with how most folks see it, because that's the easiest read, and to the degree that they embody that you see it, that's somewhat true, only from that their actions bear that out, and where they end up being. So
sure, but but it's deeper than that. They're just the dark. Like I said, the sun falls to the dark side, so he's not the embodiment of the dark side.
Right. No, I said their actions bear it out.
All right.
Right. So you start off with the thought he's the embodiment of the dark side. And I think that's purposeful when you're looking at the show. You look at his you look at his attire, look at his demeanor, look at his stance, look at his actions, look at his motives, look at everything he does supports that he is the embodiment of the dark side. Now, it's not a literal embodiment. It's that everything he is an embodiment of it, so that it reinforces those ideas. And as you begin to get deeper into it, you see that, okay, his actions bear that out to be true. The way they could have flipped it is that he could have actually been good, right? The light side. But he personifies all of the dark side characteristics.
He definitely embodies the portions of us that that are more likely to lead to the dark side.
Yeah, and Dale brings up something. Look at these toes, right? He's cloven hooved. I mean, you can't, and even the two red things on his head, those like tattoos or whatever they are,
right?
Kind of look like horns, right? So he has all the attributes, and I think that's on purpose, right? At the end of the day, there are younger people watching this who, when they see him, that's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And he bears out through his actions, through all he does, to be the bad guy.
Oh, without a doubt, he's definitely the antagonist. I'm not denying that. I mean, I just what I don't want the takeaway to be, and this is why I'm pushing back so hard, is that you have to have equal sides, dark side and light side, and that's just not true.
No, well, and we see in the sun he does not have. Like if you look at that yin and yang symbol, if he were the black side of that has the white dot in it, he doesn't have a white dot in him. And if you look at the daughter, and if she's representing that white side, she doesn't necessarily have that black dot in her either. Right. So That's it's easy to make those analogies, but they begin to break down when you actually get into the details. And I think that's what you're trying to point out is like it breaks down when you get into the details and when you really start thinking about it. And that's why the Mortis Arc bears rewatch and contemplation and thought, because it is more than what you're just, childlike viewing of it.
Right.
Go. Ooh,
it's definitely not. It's definitely not a surface view. Now, I mean, I know this was TV7 when it was made, and so definitely that's a takeaway of any 7 to probably 14-year-old, and 15 on up. Maybe they'll be able to start to begin to parse it and look deeper.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Ahsoka and Anakin and this scene. So things carry out. You've already alluded to it a little bit, and in the story arc, Anakin has to choose who to save, Obi-Wan or Anakin or Ahsoka, and he saves both of them, and then things happen afterwards that lead Ahsoka to be captured. She's bitten by a snake and poisoned. The snake turns out to be the son who is shapeshifted. And then she has these emotions that you were talking about earlier, right? So she blames Anakin for things. She's lashing out. She's emotional. She's she even duels with him, right? She decides that she needs to kill him, and they have a fight, and all of that happens because of that bite, that venom bite. And at the conclusion of it, Ahsoka ends up getting killed. Right? There's a lot more that happens, but at the end of the day, she gets killed, and she's dead, like dead, not almost dead, not maybe dead, but dead, right?
Correct.
And the father ends up using the Mortis blade to kill the son, and he kills himself, thus breaking the bond between him and the son, and ultimately killing the son. The daughter gives herself, and she is mortally. She's at a point of non-recovery.
Right.
And Anakin then takes the life force from the daughter, transfers it to Ahsoka to bring her back to life. Right. So go ahead, go through your summary here.
Okay. So I mean, what's important to note in this, and one, we've already talked about bringing her to life. So let's go ahead and dwell on that for just a minute. Again, I had already alluded to that what this represents. This is the representation of the Force continuing on the light side, if it were the Force continuing on through the small remnant, the new students of the future, and so that's what is being represented here. That the old ways will die. It'll diminish everything, the strength that you have in the universe. Today, those who wield it will diminish, and there'll be a small remnant left, and that remnant is carried on and represented in Ahsoka. And that really makes her really important because she really is the representation of the remnant of the Force that continues on past the Sith and the destruction of the Jedi Order. But it's and so it's also important to note why that is. So we have because people like to say that the Jedi Order was bad. No, they were just overzealous in their attempt to do what they thought they had to do, and so that led to them, not pursuing things in the proper way. And this actually happened with the daughter. The daughter gets reprimanded not because she acts outside the will of the father, which if that's the will of the Force, then she has not followed the will of the Force completely. But no one would say that she embraced the dark side at any point during the course of it, and she is reprimanded. And ultimately, she makes the sacrifice that to save the father that cost her life. and then she gives the last little bit of that to Ahsoka to continue it on. And so that's why this story is such a perfect allegory for what of the universe of the Force in the Star Wars galaxy. So but in the portion now, to go back to where you talked about the snake bite with Ahsoka, there's actually a little bit difference between Anakin and her, because everybody, again, on the surface, it looks like Ahsoka's fully gone to the dark side. I mean, she has crazy eyes. She's darker. She's seeking to attack Anakin. But what has happened is what's coming out of Ahsoka is suppressed feelings of bitterness and resentment. So what has happened is she's been relegated to being second fiddle. She's not given praise for the things that she does. Even when she does something right and saves, Anakin's life, he'll say, well, you couldn't have done that without me, And so, and Anakin repeatedly does these things with Ahsoka. And she has built up bitterness over this. She's like, I just want to be acknowledged for the things that I do. I want it to be fair. It feels unfair to me. And so we all have those feelings. It's like, well, I did all this and you're not saying what a good job I did, and and you're not rewarding me for it. That's not fair. And we know those feelings that it gives us. And so, but she hasn't necessarily embraced the dark side fully in this point. So even though she is attacking, she hasn't really fully embraced it. And that's different than when Anakin is brought down and he's shown all the things that'll occur, and so he immediately goes to the dark side. He voluntarily goes to the dark side because he wants to control. He releases the suppressed feelings of loss and abandonment in Anakin, and Anakin's like, I am not going to let this happen. The same thing we saw happen truly that led him to the dark side in Revenge of the Sith occurs here. I am not going to let these things occur. No one's going to take from me what's mine. And
yeah, it bears a brief note that we see Jedi use emotion many times. It's not that Jedi are emotionless, right? It's that they control them and channel them. And you see that with Qui-Gon in The Phantom Menace. As he's going through it, he's battling with Maul. He stops, he focuses, and he channels the emotion. And that's why that a lot of people say, he is a perfect example of an idealized Jedi. Ahsoka does the same several times, where you see Luke do it, you see Rey do it, you see several where they get angry, they give in to emotion maybe for a brief period, but they end up centering and channeling and not allowing it to take over their motivations. And where you see with Anakin, when he gives into those emotions, then he does not take control over them, but allows them to control his actions coming out, right?
Yep. So they are speaking, those desires take over. So, it's one thing to have the emotions and to acknowledge those emotions. It's a completely another thing to give into those emotions, to carry out what you most wish in that moment, because it will make you feel better in that moment. And, regardless of what the ultimate consequences are.
Yep. I want to get to this last slide because there was a deleted scene, and some people have talked about it, and you may have trouble reading what it says here, but the deleted scene had Revan and Bane in it, and it had the son on his knees saying, "What do you want from me?" Right? And there's this exposition that Revan gives. It says, and I'll read it just in case folks are having trouble through YouTube seeing it. It says, "We are those who have come before, those who were betrayed, those who hate. We are wielders of the dark side. There's a lot to unpack in that sentence alone, or those sentences alone, but it goes on. We stand before you, disciples of the dark side, intent on its supremacy. It has been foreseen that one lives who will control the universe. Know this, the chosen one is the key. He who controls Skywalker will control everything, which is Palpatine, right? He controls Vader, right? We tell you this to guarantee your success. Now, the hope was the son would get that control over Skywalker, and that didn't happen. But there's some statements in here that are actually quite helpful. They were those who hate. They're wielders of the dark side, allowing that hate to control their use of the Force, and they are disciples of the dark side, so that they wield it intentionally that way.
Right. Yeah, there's some pieces before this too, because not only does he say, I've done everything you asked,
Yep.
And to them, and he says, but why do I feel so? Why? How does he say it? I can't remember the exact wording, but he asked them why he doesn't have what he asked for, and he goes, but you have. And he says, why do I feel this pain? Because of course the daughter had died, and that's when he became ungrounded. And they to which they responded, because you have not embraced your resentment, and so that's to which he said to what they said, and then that's when they go, because we are. Then he goes, who are you? Why are you doing this to me? And he starts lashing out at them, and then that's when you hear that response: we are those who have come before. And so, I mean, that's kind of the key of what we're getting into, because it's actually really important, because effectively, what's occurred with the death of the daughter with the son is the same thing that occurs with Anakin and Padme, because that was when Padme dies, everything that would have kept Anakin grounded, that was the moment that Darth Vader was probably truly born. And when he says, "Nope, you killed her," and he's like, "No," with that response, right?
We're coming up on the 1 hour already, and I just wanted to reinforce that everything that we've kind of discussed is the unpeeling of layers, right? This great big onion that is the Mortis Arc, and how many layers there are between all of these symbols and the story. At its surface level, it's a very simple good versus evil, very simple. And the embodiment of good and the embodiment of evil is very clear. And to make the assumption that the son is the embodiment of the dark side, the daughter is the embodiment of the light side, is a natural connection. It's in fact, I think, purposeful. But as you start to unlayer the levels of detail and connect it to what we also know, and I hate this word because of how it's often used, but when you start to use the lore in the Star Wars universe to understand these concepts, it has much, much deeper meaning, so much so that the surface understanding is it can be a misreading of the actual message that you're getting, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's right, and I think that sorry, I'm threatening to lose my voice apparently, but no, I think that you're right. That it's absolutely people can misread this, but ultimately, once you dig deep, it turns out to be one of the most revealing arcs about the Force within the all of Star Wars in all actuality.
Yeah. And Comic Books Deals and Deals. Hello. Welcome. Good to have you back. Good to see you here. Thanks for stopping. And Phil, the Mortis Arc is one of the best things to have happened to Star Wars. I agree. And as we talked about, it was TV7, right? but these concepts and even the content is very mature. And for somebody who's 53 years old, it still brings deeper understanding as I go back and rewatch it and look at deeper into the meanings and the actual content. And I think Imagic Maker, you did a good job of pulling out a couple of the real basics, right? Like the sun, his emotions, right? His base human emotions, ambition, freedom, and control, and how he then uses those emotions or is used by those emotions to eventually become a dark side being. He doesn't start off that way, but he ends up being that way.
Right, that's correct.
And the same thing happens with the daughter. And again, this is kind of brilliant what you put in here, right? Her base emotions are really what leads that. Her empathy, duty, and compassion. She keeps the son grounded, and her life is one of more selflessness. And those actions, those things, lead her to be a more light side user, if we can use that term. So, and so much so that she becomes sacrificial. I mean, she sacrifices herself for others, and where the son is not sacrificial, right? He does not sacrifice himself for others. He does not give himself for others. He wants to use the force and use other things to his benefit, to make himself more powerful and to give himself more control. The daughter is more selfless. She's willing to give of herself to help others. And those things are what determine them to be light and dark, not that they are light and are dark, and that leads to the other things. And so he's kind of getting the cart ahead of the horse kind of thing. But I'm not going to really take somebody too much task over making that connection.
Right. I think the idea is the challenge, whether we are naturally, the idea that we want to challenge with this is that people are naturally evil. People may have a natural tendency towards selfishness, but that doesn't make them naturally evil, right? And I think that's kind of the aspect that is challenging. So, I hate to use this term, and maybe I shouldn't, but there are some despicable people in history that people have said, if you could kill them as a baby, would you? Because they committed such horrendous crimes through things and genocides, and they asked, well, if you could you kill them as a baby, would you? Well, as a baby, that person wasn't evil. They became evil. They embraced the dark side. They were not dark side beforehand. And it'd be better if you could alter their course and keep them from ever embracing that dark side.
Right. The events of their life reinforce some of their nature, and that nature then becomes developed in their actions, and then they start down a path. So you're right. You could intervene and course correct. Then that would be better, right?
Right. I mean, even if they turned out evil, in the way they are now, if you could, the idea that you can't intervene with somebody before they do, and that's the whole point of prison reform, right? I mean, we believe that if they can be reformed. The idea is they can be redeemed. I mean, it's the basis of Christian, of thought is that people can be redeemed, through the through a sacrifice of God and through Christ. I mean, without the redemption, there's nothing, right? So so the idea that people can't be turned away from, a destructive, whether to themselves or to others, path is got to be wholesale, rejected. And I think that's what's important. Even though some people may have a tendency to move down the dark side, toward the dark side, they are not evil, and they can be redeemed, and they can be moved away from that path before it becomes too much.
So we have the nature versus nurture argument, right? but, and without getting too deep into that, I do want to get to another topic I kind of hinted at, teased at the beginning, In this arc, Anakin does the thing that he wants to do, right? Saving his mother, saving Padme. He does this with Ahsoka, right? He does the life essence transfer from the daughter to Ahsoka, bringing her from death to life, which is sort of ironic because it's the thing that leads him into discipleship with Palpatine and bending the knee and taking on the mantle of Vader. So I find it fascinating that in this story arc, he does the thing that he wants to learn, but following doesn't. He has some memory, right? The thing he doesn't remember is his mind is wiped of part of the experience. Right. What he was given as a vision of becoming Vader and Palpatine, all of that was wiped. But his memory of the actual going there is not. Because at the end, Rex says, "Hey, what happened?" And he says, "Oh, you wouldn't believe me if I told you." And he does remember what happened.
At least some portion of it.
At least some portion of it. And I love that here he actually does bring back Ahsoka from the dead. And theoretically, had he learned that lesson and kept it coming out, he could have saved his mother by just draining the life out of all of those Tusken Raiders to give her enough life to force her to live, or even transferring some of his own essence to keep her from dying. In the fear of letting Padme die, he could have dealt with as well. He must not remember the lesson, or it doesn't carry.
Right. I mean, I think, and this is just speculation. I mean, one thing we do know before it happened was that the daughter was willingly sacrificing her life, what remained of her life, for Ahsoka. So that, in that sense, that was a willing exchange. And if we want to take this into the sequel trilogy, even Rey explained that she loses some of her life to give that life away. And then we see it again played out when Ben, saves, I almost said Ahsoka, when saves Rey, he has to give up his life to bring back her life. So it's a willing exchange of life. So in that sense, while Anakin wants to save Padme, he wants to bring his mother back, he doesn't want to trade his own life to bring her back. He's still selfish. He's still embracing his own, what he wants. His desire is a selfish love, a selfish desire to have and control. And that's the point behind what Anakin has become. And that he, so even so, in the end, he could have saved Padme, but only if he was willing to sacrifice himself. And that's not what he was willing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really important though, because I think if it's true, the rumor that Padme's life is what was taken to save Anakin, that means she was probably willing to give up her life in the end if it meant he lived. So it shows the difference between the two.
Well, I don't know that she knew he would. That she was doing that.
I don't know if she does either, but she was probably, if her mindset was in that, she would be willing to, as long as he, lived, then that would be.
Passport brings up an interesting thought too. There is a theory that when Vader finds Ahsoka's saber, he remembers the vision from Mortis and realizes he's become the thing that he wanted to avoid being. It's an interesting theory, and I'm not opposed to it at all.
Be a cool little short story, huh?
It would be, but I also don't know how much of this scene that I have on here he remembers.
Right.
Because this had he remembered this, had he been able to contemplate on it, dwell on it, and explore it further, he may have not had the same desire to continue down the path to solve death.
Right. That's probably true.
So that's where I'm fascinated by it, right? He does the thing that he wants to do, but then later doesn't have the ability or the knowledge. He probably has the ability because he's done it, but he probably doesn't have the knowledge to use that ability
Right.
to do the thing that he wanted to do.
They're holding me back.
Yeah.
They just let him be a master and get into the archives. He'd be able to figure it out again, and then boom.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, right. So it's really, really interesting stuff. Phil, well, Mortis is also a planet where it enhanced the Force. That's true. Not only that, but the Father is kind of guiding there too. So there is that he had some augmented. If you think of it, at this point, Qui-Gon Jinn, it shows up. Embodied as a Force ghost, but it's only here. So it is a enhanced Force kind of place. Mortis is in a planet, right? It exists. So Bruce, hold on. It exists in the world between worlds. There are several scenes show there's a connection for sure, but I think Meta Egg, right? Has Will Morgan has pointed out that perhaps any use of the Force connects you to the world between worlds. It's the conduit at which the Force flows. If you want to think of it that way, it's the valve. And as you use the Force, it flows through the world between worlds. And if that's the case, then Mortis just has a strong valve, right? Really strong valve to it.
I mean, I guess really all of those places do. Anytime you meditate, you would. I mean, just really what it comes down to, maybe, because if we use the description that's given to us, it's all around us. That means the world between worlds is all around us as well.
Yeah, Mortis was in that. It appeared to be a man-made diamond-shaped space.
Yeah, some sort of monolith in space.
Right. And I don't know that it's necessarily a planet. Right. It's a it's a metaphysical kind of place.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely. I mean, its shape looks like two of the altars of Mortis, put together.
Yeah, and Bruce, we showed this with Trev the other day, where you do see in the Mortis Arc the bridge where you can, or in the arena itself, you can see the wolves and some arcs and circles and stuff that kind of are same sort of symbology that you see in the world between worlds, but not necessarily the same. But you also see in there on that bridge when Anakin is going to go meet with the Father, there are kind of the same sort of circles and imagery there as well. It says one of those ships from Dawn of the Jedi. Yes, Mark, that's true. Yes, it's one of those. There's I think, 4 of them or 5 of them? How many of those exist? Do you know?
No idea. No.
But yeah, it's one of those. An octahedron. Yes. Like a 8-sided dice. So if you play Dungeons and Dragons, if we still have our our friends from Polyhedral Paradise are here, that's exactly it. Yeah. Got to go see the Mortis Arc again. Yeah, it's worth going back and watching again. It's absolutely worth it. And I think as Star Wars fans, it should be something that, and again, I mentioned earlier, I think we're absolutely going to get some more of it in the Ahsoka series. Maybe not the Mortis Arc itself, but that Morai is tightly connected to her throughout the rest of the series, throughout the Clone Wars animated series, throughout Rebels, and then even into the Mandalorian, where we see her show up. So, absolutely worth watching to understand that connection she has with the daughter and the daughter's sacrifice that lives on in Ahsoka. And if Wandering Dog is correct in that Ahsoka is the daughter. The Morai is Ahsoka. That it's different embodiments of the same being. Then that's an interesting thought. And we'll see
I think there might be some validity to that in the same sense of. We were talking about Gandalf before, and one of the key factors of that is that the reason I said Gandalf died, and so the understanding of this is that Gandalf dies, and he goes back to the halls of Mandos. All right, that's death, that's heaven, that's where everyone, and they re-embody him and send him back, and that's when he becomes the Gandalf the White, and so he explains that in the course of the books, not so much in the movies. But point of it is that he's sent back to carry on his mission. In the same way, an embodiment of the daughter would be for Ahsoka to be sent back, and for her to carry on her mission, and she does it through the body of Ahsoka. So Ahsoka's still there, but I mean she's also the daughter. She has become the daughter, as it were.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, Wandering Dog, you do see Ahsoka and the Morai at the same time, several times. So it's not that they have to be one or the other. There's a lot of symbology there with the Morai, and it definitely is a spirit animal, if you want to put it that way.
It's a familiar.
Yeah, it's a familiar. Exactly. And we've been having a discussion on one of the Discord servers that I'm on, Everyday Geeks. We've been having a discussion about his dark materials. And in there, they have those daemons that are sort of the same thing. One is the other. The other is the one.
It is a demon.
Yeah, well, it's in a different It's a daemon, right? Like that. It could be that the Morai is one of those, except that daemon has a definition,
right?
And that's they're evil spirits. And in his dark materials, they're not necessarily evil. They're it's a lot more like a what's the term you just used?
A familiar?
A familiar, yeah. It's a lot more like that.
Right.
It's a lot more like a familiar. So there you go. Yeah. His dark material. Yeah, actually we've been talking about it in Nerdvana's. It's in Nerdvana's Nerdvana.
Nerdvana, yeah.
Not Nirvana, but Nerdvana.
Nerdvana
Discord. We've been talking about it in there.
Yeah, I'm still working on a theory on the Ahsoka show and all this and all the symbols and that. But I've gone through a lot of the pictures, and I can definitely see the link there between the name and other symbols within Star Wars. So it's I think that there's definitely some link between Ahsoka and the world between worlds to some degree. So I think it's and remember we were talking about the Ezra theory with the portal as well, and I'll incorporate that when it all comes out. I'm still working on that to kind of get all my pieces together. I have the thoughts right now. I'll see how well I can put it together.
Well, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, the Taika's movie may tie some of this in again. We could see perhaps Mortis show up again. But for sure, maybe one of those eight-sided dice that the octahedron, right? We may see one of those, and that was in the artwork on the call. Somebody picked that out really, really well. And Star Wars Theory's reaction to the announcement, they dive kind of deep into that. It was really good. So, Morai is a familiar of Ahsoka. The daughter is her spirit animal. Convor. Yeah, that's it.
And the Convory.
Yeah. So, yeah. Daemons do have a definition. there's you can and again in the Nerdvana Discord we've been going into. There's a definition. They are associated with evil in the show. They're not. They don't come across that way. It's more of a familiar. But it is a daemon, right? So that's it. That's our deep dive into the Mortis arc, and definitely worth rewatching, worth familiarizing yourself, and peeling back a couple layers of the onion, and getting deeper into. And the Magic Maker, thank you so much for doing that for us, and showing us those connections. Really good job. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me. If I can have just one more moment. Hey,
Yeah.
so announcement. So if you have not gone to my server, the Star Wars Fandomverse, this Sunday we'll be having another fan fiction read. So even if you don't necessarily write fan fiction, please come on by and give those writers an opportunity to read some of their work and have an audience and have comments and ways to improve. So this is something we're doing now every Sunday at I guess 9 p.m. Eastern. I think 9 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Central time, and so it's just an intent to help people grow in our community and then grow with their writing, and just an opportunity for y'all to hear some other people's thoughts on Star Wars and where they're taking their stories. And he has my link, and he'll put it in.
Yeah, can you put a link to your Discord in our DM, and I'll put it in the chat here, because I tried to get it myself, but it won't let me.
Okay, well, give me a sec.
Yeah, you grab that and we'll put it in there. But it's let's see, keep up with some chats here. You should go check out Polyhedral Paradise's D&D Discord as well. And Everyday Geeks is really good. Nerdvana is really good. We've got some great communities started. And as we said earlier, I've got too many of them right now. Keeping up with them all, but they're really, really good. Imagine we see the discovery of hyperspace and intergalactic travel opening up the galaxy in Taika's movie. Oh, you bring up a point, Mark, that I want to talk about, and I forgot yesterday. There's Polyhedral Paradise's Discord. Russell put that in there. Wu-Tang Wells, thank you. And I am in the middle of the High Republic novel and Light of the Republic. I'm both reading it and listening to it, and I would like to do a spoiler discussion of that novel coming up. So for anybody who has read the novel, you have opinions. We've also been talking about maybe doing a panel discussion of a Star Wars topic. I think this would be a great opportunity to have one of those panel discussions. Maybe we get 3 or 4 of us together and we talk about Light of the Jedi, full of spoilers and how that novel plays out in the universe, because it does touch on some of these points that Mark's bringing up here. That'd be really good. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. Yeah, the new book in hyperspace. That's exactly it, Gray. That's exactly it. So I would like to have that discussion. A Magic Maker, have you given me the link yet? You have not.
I just stuck it in the chat. I had myself on mute.
Oh, okay. I don't see it in the chat. If one of the mods in the chat could approve it, that'd be good. It won't let me do it from StreamYard. So if you guys see, okay, if you see a Magic Maker's link in the chat, would you please approve it and let it go through? That'd be great. That's it. Anything? Yeah, that's it.
It's not here. I just dropped it twice.
I know it should be there. Let me log into YouTube and see if I can approve it, because I can't do anything from StreamYard. That's really a pain in the tushy. but let me see if I can get there. Go into the studio and see if I can get into.
Yeah, it's not letting me.
Okay, so Russell says send it again.
I just did. It's not.
Okay.
He's not seeing it. This must be blocking me.
Yeah, it probably is. Let me see if I can get it live. I got to get all the way into the studio. Back. Wrong link. Let's see here if I can get into the control room. There we go. Coming into the control room now. I will have the power in a moment. This is a ping. Save. Okay, let's see. Wu-Tang. No, I don't see it either. A Magic Maker.
I'm about to send it to you by chat. I'm just going to say.
Okay. I'm like I can't even see it. None of our mods can see it. You should be a mod too. I should actually, while I'm in here, let me see if I can make that.
I just sent it to you by chat.
Okay, and ping something in the chat so that I can get it.
See me? No, I just sent to you in the.
I got it. But I want to set you as a mod too. There's this is a Magic Maker Discord. There we go. And now I can add you as a moderator. And then you should be able to post those kind of things yourself. All right. So there. That should do it. That should do it. Yeah, it made it. There we go. All right. And I'll put that in the description as well. We've kind of just lagged here at the end. I'll go ahead and we'll close it up now and let you all know that tomorrow we're doing a major unboxing. In no spoilers in the chat if you know the answer. But I have a Mandalorian vintage collection figure right here. I got to be careful. I almost showed something. No, and there are a couple of hints. The hints are it has an ice cream maker in it, and it has an interchangeable head figure so that you can put different faces or displays on the character as you use it. So don't give any spoilers away. If you know it, you can put in the chat, hey, I know what it is. If you, but don't tell people what it is. We'll do the unboxing tomorrow. And then once we've had some time to use it and a Magic Maker and Vega have their figure as well, then we'll do a toy review afterwards. So there you go.
Absolutely. We'll see them in their Mandalorian armor playing with toys.
Mark, I said no spoilers. No, not the egg container, the ice cream maker. Wrong one. There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here again. I hope you all have a wonderful day today, and we will see you tomorrow. And until then, Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye-bye.